See if it pops up in YouTube. It is on public, so I think what we'll need to do. Okay, it's popped up live now.
All right, you got the link for that?
Uh,
Or is it just people on
I'll send it
Peterhanstyle
over to
style?
you. Actually, just go to my YouTube channel. It should be under
Yeah.
live section. And it's okay if, while this is more just like general conversation.
Okay.
You see it?
I see it. I'm seeing it, but I do not hear it.
You don't hear anything?
No. But it could be.
Maybe because you have my audio and stuff and whatnot. Or we can test it with the public coming in too. As people jump in here, I can ask them. As long as they can hear things, we should be okay.
Okay, nope. Now I hear it. But I do not.
Yeah, okay, there we go. I hear it too. For those of you that are
Are
jumping
you
in right
getting
now,
echo now?
I'm getting the echo. Yeah.
So I'm gonna mute it.
Yeah.
So
That's
it's
fine.
side by side.
Yeah.
This is what you wanted.
Yep. This should be it.
Okay.
So for those of you that are in here jumping in at the moment, if you guys can give us a really quick confirmation, can you hear my audio, Izzy's audio together? This is our first sort of like kind of get together as a conversation point. So we want to make sure things are working okay. We're trying to troubleshoot everything ourselves, but I feel like having a little bit of a audience support, I think, will be quite nice, especially in these situations of just starting something up for fun. We'll be hanging out for just a little bit, but I'll help understand and coordinate what this is about in just a moment here. But if anybody's out there that can give us a really quick shout and a message on the chat saying audio is good, Izzy, can you test the audio out real quickly?
Yeah, test.
Okay,
Audio
cool.
check.
Relevant?
Izzy.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. I can hear you. You sound good. Video's up, both of us. For those of you joining in at the moment, this is going to be pretty much just a conversation point. You're not really going to be seeing any like sketching, drawing, that sort of stuff. Maybe in the future we'll try to figure out and problem solve that situation if it ever comes up. But I'll kind of like shoot it off, even though this is our very first time coming together in this manner of speaking. We've done things like our class meetups in my rooms, and we do it for the students and whatnot. But we've never done it public before. I think this is our first time really kind of doing that. I think we've done like sit downs, and I'll record it. I might post it, but I don't remember. Have we done it on YouTube before, or is this our first time?
I don't think so. No. Yeah.
I don't think so either.
Probably the closest would be when you were on YouTube and then I'd like come into the chat or something like that.
Right.
But
Oh,
never
exactly. Yeah.
never audio and visual
Yeah.
simultaneously.
Okay, cool. Well, for those of you that are here, like I said, this is going to be a a night for just conversation, just talk amongst artists, and I'm labeling this the Peterhanstyle Izzy Artist Talk. This is our first meeting online. We'll probably keep you here on this channel for the moment, but like I said, we'll see what goes on in the future because I intend this to be a ongoing series between me and Izzy. Hopefully, we'll do it maybe like every bi-week if we can. If we do more, we actually will. And yeah, well, hopefully you guys will just enjoy just hanging out, talking with us. We might take a couple questions here and there. I'm not going to be responding to every single question. I'll monitor to the chat. Izzy, you can do as well too. Any super chats, donations, we'll definitely be able to sort of interact with those people as well, most likely. But this will be between mostly just me and Izzy, just having conversation. But being the first episode, Izzy, if you want to maybe shout out a couple things based on you and maybe some things you want to share.
Geez, I had nothing prepared because we were doing a tech test.
Yeah, that's all right.
But
I figured it'd just be like more of your
yeah,
background and any like
all
handles and
good. Yeah.
Instagram,
So
whatever.
I imagine, yeah, you probably have a pretty regular inflow of new people, so I'm happy to go over it again. But I'm a concept artist, art director, and creator. I've been working in entertainment industry since shit for about 20 years now. Um, Started out in video games, moved on to also do kind of um, TV, world building, some writing, things like that. Started doing art directing and animation, and currently I'm kind of doing like I'm wearing all the hats right now with Riot Games
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the in marketing department.
Cool, cool.
So yeah, basically I'm your multi hyphenate, which is just the worst kind of thing you can be as a concept artist,
I mean,
writer,
we
art
can
director,
talk about that
creative
kind of stuff.
director, etc.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I put up all your
It's a lot.
information of links and everything in the description, so it's already there.
Oh, thanks.
Um, in any
Yeah,
case,
check that stuff out.
yeah. New year, 2025, man. This is our first time
Mm-hmm.
having conversation. I just met up with you what, a week ago, and I thought that
2 weeks.
jumping
Yeah,
2 weeks ago, jumping off point was great. Just like
yeah.
sit down and talk a little bit. Um, I mean, you mentioned that part about having all these, I guess, labels and descriptions of
Hmm.
your skills and whatnot, but sounds kind of rough in terms of like, trying to make it work, right?
It is. It's an interesting thing. Like with this industry, almost everybody, I'm sure yourself, well, I know yourself included, but almost everybody that's like an artist or works in some specific field or specialization has tons of different interests and they're into different stuff and they want to make different things.
Yeah,
But this industry wants to like put you in a box so damn bad
yeah,
that they will like it can actually actively hurt you to multi hyphenate
yeah.
with like a specialization or a skill set. So kind of one of the things that we've talked about on numerous occasions is just like how frustrating that can be. Like it's it's like it's like multi-classing in D&D, right? So you start out as an artist or a concept artist, and let's say you want to start writing. Anytime you sort of add a new hyphenate to whatever it is you're doing, you are at the bottom of the class for that thing,
Mm.
regardless of where you are with anything else, unless you're like top tier or you're a Nepo baby or something like that. It's very hard to break into each new thing. So each time it's like starting from scratch, which
But
can slow you down. So it's like
yeah,
if I'd spent all of that time leveling up in one thing,
sure, sure.
no problem, right?
But you're talking more like in industry level, corporate level stuff. What about
Oh
independently
yeah.
though? Because when you're going independent,
Independently, I find it. Yeah.
I mean, independently, you're kind of like responsible for handling all that side of whatever it's like the process of production to the business aspect of it. If anything else, you're forced to have to learn some of those new skills and things like that. So, um, would you say you've maybe that's the one part that's the big difference between what you and I have kind of done, where you still focus a bit
Mhm.
more on trying to make that industry focus a splash, I guess, in a way. When you want to
Mhm.
produce something like, let's say, a story you're writing that you're doing, you see it as like a show or a comic, but you see it on a level of getting it into production. Because one of the things I know you've
Mhm.
always mentioned that what you wanted was, you know, having something out there, as an actual viable product that's been produced and published, not an independently released sort of thing. Which for
Mhm.
myself, I would say I have a little bit of those maybe interests still remaining, but I don't think it's a big strong drive for me anymore. Uh, let alone
Yeah.
working in the industry, like going back into a studio, I have no interest in. So,
Mhm.
do you find it to be hard to maybe separate yourself from the industry and corporate way of thinking and process right now?
Probably. I mean, uh, I think I've gotten to the point where I don't really care if
Yeah.
it's made via industry or not,
Mm,
but it's kind of like I've been institutionalized. It's
right.
all I know, man.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all I know. So like that's the process that I know. When you guys tell me your process for just like kicking shit out, and you're like, we're gonna do a Kickstarter. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. It just needs to make
Yeah.
enough to print, and like that freaks me out because I'm always thinking like
Yeah.
I need I need to stay alive and
Right.
all of this stuff
Right.
and yeah. So I don't have it. The other aspect is that you also teach,
Yeah.
and I
That's
don't
true.
teach anymore. I'm sort of like I pulled back from that pretty hard. So it's in terms of income, it's all
Yeah.
industry oriented. Or if I do this and I focus on just getting my own stuff out there, it has to work.
Right.
And one of the things that we've talked about many times is that like for my stuff, it's just I write miss after miss. I just don't know what people like.
Well, I mean,
you
we can jump off from,
it'll hit sometime,
I would say
but
so, but that's unpredictable, of course. And I understand what you're saying. It's like there's no guarantee if it's going to actually give you any sort of like financial stability, which is always really
no.
scary. So wanting to invest on something like that is not the most attractive nor stress free as an approach. So any
Mhm.
sort of production of you making something independently is nothing but stress driven. Whereas for myself, it's not some sort of like financial need of a thing. It's helpful, it's great, but if it flops or people don't really buy it, it's like, well, okay, well, the next project I can go again, and not necessarily a
Hmm.
big hurt to me because yeah, classes and stuff like that are my main thing. Beforehand, it was working full time, and I would still do these things on the side work. But yeah, I understand how that kind of goes. Um, yeah, I don't know, but how many more weeks do you have left on maybe your current like projects and stuff full time? Because I know you're on something at the moment. I know you
Like
can't say what it is, but
the Riot, it's just I'm working at Riot, but the Riot
yeah.
gig's like another. Um, they just re-signed me for like 14 weeks.
Oh, they did. Nice,
So
man.
like that's the weird thing though, is like with this kind of, and I know you've gone through this too, but these, when you're doing the freelance like office work,
Mm.
how it's like weeks, like the stability is just not there. So so like I'll find out in 14 weeks if I still have a job. It's
Yeah,
not like you're signed on for 6 or 7 years or for an entire project or anything like that. It's so piecemeal.
yeah, yeah.
So it's still stressful. That's a funny thing. So there's no reason I shouldn't take a risk on this other stuff.
No, for sure.
But
But even then, if you
you
were
know,
contracted for like a 2 year sort of thing, even then, you don't really know if they're going to have you back after 2 years. And you might think, oh, that's a lot of time, but it goes so quickly.
very true. What they could even like, I've had jobs where you just end up salaried and, the studio shuts down or the game
Exactly.
gets canceled.
Yeah.
Like the industry is completely and utterly unstable right now.
I mean, even for
You
me
can't
back
count on
then,
anything.
yeah, for what, plus 10 plus years ago, it wasn't really stable for me either. I wasn't on a job more than 2.5 to 3 years at the most. That's the most I ever stayed in any studio.
Yeah,
And most of them were normally
yeah,
shorter, 10 months, a year, if that.
mhm,
So when you're saying 14
yeah,
weeks, yeah, it's, a couple of months at a time, but really
mhm,
not that much different than being just, full time, but also the way it was years ago. I would imagine it wouldn't be any different if I went back to the studio now, which is why it doesn't make it that attractive to me in the first place. Um,
yeah.
yeah, so I get it. I get it. So, when we had that
I
talk
I
last
went.
couple weeks ago, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, no, exactly what you're saying. Like I think so. The one of the lessons that I learned a long time ago. This was part of the reason I went and moved onto the boat and did that whole thing, was that you can't count on corporate anything, that they don't really give a shit about you. So it's really about like, have the life that you can get,
Yeah.
and you can't count on them. Like there is no guarantee. And so many, especially in the games industry, but I mean everywhere, have learned this lesson the hard way.
Mm,
So like I it's interesting that I have that institutionalized mentality where like I know that there's no such thing as stability there,
yeah.
but I still want to find it.
Right.
Like, because then I can lean on that and then I can focus on my own thing. It's always like, if everything is perfectly aligned, then I can go do this. Like, it's so easy to fall into that mentality with this kind of gig. So I don't know. Yeah, it's a weird position.
But that's, even for me though, it's like, even though I had a full time job before, and even with the class stuff I do now, yeah, it can be difficult to plan out everything to go accordingly to the stuff you want to work on independently. Like I have so many books that I want to work on, and things have shifted a little bit for myself. I would say in the last couple of years. Like beforehand, I would say more than maybe five before COVID, before 2019. I was pretty good on being very like regimental. Even though I was working full time
Mhm.
class wise, my stuff, I would always be able to like get something done and get a book done. And in the last couple of years, honestly, I felt a little bit disappointed in purely more in myself. Not because I feel like I'm being lazy, but I feel like I've lost time. And normally I would have been producing something yearly, putting something out. And I've gotten to the mode of also like kind of talking myself out in a matter of thinking, more like kind of saving myself a little bit. um People would ask questions of like, when's this one coming out, when's that book coming down, and I would have some sort of like reply saying, oh, there's maybe a scheduling conflict, or it's the publisher's sort of situation, or it's like, oh, it's coming down the line, I'm working on it, whereas like I haven't really done anything. you know um so that kind of stuff currently has been taken hold a little bit, and so it's not even then just about trying to find that perfect sort of scheduling, and even though I'm busy with other stuff, and how do I set time other side, even if I had the time, I think it's becoming so much more just straight up mental. I'm questioning if I even care anymore. you know, um,
Yeah, yeah. W- Why do you think that it was just like kind of the advent of COVID that started that for you?
I don't know. It's hard to say because we had so much time during COVID.
Mhm.
And maybe
Yeah.
it created that mentality of like, there's plenty of time to work on things, and maybe kind of is a residual effect of that. Maybe I don't know. Um, it's kind of hard to say because is it just because I've gotten older, maybe, and kind of got, is it a burnout possibly? I don't think it's a burnout. I don't feel that way at all. I have a lot of interest in working in these things. Um, but it hasn't really like taken hold just yet. Like these new things I got to work on, new projects, new books, new ideas, because they're always swimming, and I want to work on them. It just hasn't like
Yeah.
shifted into gear, you know. Maybe it's just a momentum thing. Maybe it's, I don't know what it is, but I've already gotten started on some stuff. But I think maybe it's just a constant break of my attention being distracted to other stuff I have to take care of. I can't maintain
Hmm.
the consistent just drive of it. Maybe that
Yeah.
is going back to what you're saying, purely more of a scheduling sort of situation, or the time management of like after you do your full time stuff. Um, I don't know. Are you pretty consistent right now, like working on stuff, like with your writing projects, anything else?
No, not at all. And I think kind of my theory with this might be applicable to you, but you're not going to like to hear
Oh, that's fine. I mean,
it.
that's what this is for.
We're getting old, dude.
Yeah, no, I don't mind
Our
hearing that.
priorities are shifted. Like you look at how I worked when I got out of college,
Yeah.
right? So like I had that debt and I wanted to get rid of the debt as soon as possible.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
was like doing the math on this. Like who was I talking with? I can't remember, but we were talking it might have been Mariah and that gang.
Yeah.
But we were talking about like how you and I both used to work. Like I slept 4 hours a night. I
Yeah.
had, six jobs simultaneously just to pay down those loans. And so like the motivation was different.
Mm.
And now like there's this aspect of like also just wanting to enjoy life
Yeah.
and that I'm not just like this weird aliens mother breeder that's just pumping out concept
Yeah.
and product after product, and like
Right.
is that living, like these questions start to come up when you kind of see the end of the tunnel there,
Of
right?
course. Of course. I mean, it
Like yeah.
definitely connects into what I mentioned to you about like conventions and shows, because we were talking about conventions and how I meant,
Hmm.
kind of passed the idea that even shows for me these days, like Comic Con in San Diego, I enjoy them a lot, but I certainly don't push or maybe actively do as much, prepare as much as I used to. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, like even the upcoming shows for this year, it's like I'm excited to go to them. It's fun to just show up and just sit there, hang out, talk to people, and draw and sell a couple things. But beforehand, everything was about like it's got to be presentable. Everything has to be branded. I have to make all these products and I have to sell them at a certain amount of assets. So yeah, maybe it's that driving factor of time for sure. But as you matures, maybe you do care less. But maybe it's a different way of trying to experience things. I don't know.
Hmm.
And some things I guess have been taken out of my hands also. Like if I do these Comic Con shows, I don't really do any of the logistics anymore. The hotels or travel. I
True.
just show up. So once I just have to show up, it's like you just do your thing and you leave. Which I kind of, it's a hate and love thing. It's nice because it's a little bit easier, but at the same time, I do miss the involvement of where I would actually be able to handle everything. And again, I like being at those shows. So if I'm just checking in, checking out, it doesn't feel as maybe immersive, maybe, or engaging is probably the better word.
Hmm.
I don't know. So I guess I'm trying to
it's
not in some way re-spark this motivation. I feel like it's still there, but I think you're right in the sense that we just see different things now, where it was so singular in the beginning.
Well, there was another thing. There's another thing to that, I think, that you kind of just made it like a light bulb go off for me. So like this is a microcosm of what I think we might be talking about, or at least connected to it. So for teaching with me,
Yeah.
when I first started teaching, it was terrifying and I worked really hard because I really wanted to make something that like would help.
Yeah.
Like I was so obsessed with making sure people were getting their money's worth. You know, I hated a lot of kind of the bullshit extra that happened with like our expensive asset education.
Hmm.
And I wanted to like just synthesize everything down into its like purest form and make sure that it had value, right? And then as the years went on and I became really comfortable with the package I'd put together. Like I was confident in it. I no
Yeah.
longer felt the need to like really be versed in it. It just came naturally. It was almost like a second language at that point.
Hmm.
And then it became a first language where by when I first started, I forgot how to read. I was so nervous.
Yeah.
And then by the time I quit, I would walk in without any syllabus,
Oh
no
yeah,
lesson plan.
for sure.
I would sit down, start painting the most absurd, horrible things, and then explaining how it works.
Hmm.
And people were still going like, ah, and they were
Yeah.
entertained and
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
fun. But I just like didn't care as much.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe that's kind of what this sounds like is you're
Oh yeah.
so comfortable
Oh yeah.
now.
That's what it
Just
is.
there's no challenge. There's no like there's nothing juicy for you to really sink your
Right.
teeth into with it. Now it's just about like the rote message that you
Yeah.
already know
Yeah.
by heart, right?
I mean, I see it.
Which sounds awful,
I see it
but this is a
specifically
human condition.
within. Yeah, for sure. I think you're right on that sense, and I see that within, let's say, like technical. When I'm doing sketches and drawing work, I really purely apply it there. But then the other stuff I'm mentioning about even just like motivation or showing up to shows and doing that thing, it definitely seems to like bleed into all that. Um, it's something I mentioned, which is like it's just I've become too overtrained. I think we've both become
Mhm.
so um, nearly just good at what we do in those specific areas in which we can just kind of plug and play and just do it. It's much like even right now. I'm actually supposed to fly out to Paris on Saturday. I'm flying out
Oh,
there.
nice.
Yeah, so I'm doing a workshp out there for like 2 weeks, and it was like a last minute call. They said, "Hey, we need somebody." They said, "We need somebody for like animal drawing." And I'm just like, "Okay, that's fine." But I'm supposed to go on
Mm.
Saturday, but I don't have anything prepared, so I don't know what I'm going to be doing, what how the structure is going to be set up, what I'm going to even talk about. And I'll probably do something by the end of the week, just like gather images, references. I thought about it a little bit, stuff I would normally talk about, but I don't not worried about it at all. It's like I'm not even putting
Yeah.
much effort or thought into it because
Y
I'm just
Your
going to
heart
fall
rate is
back.
like a steady 65, like,
Yeah,
you're not concerned.
exactly. So is that a good thing, or is that a I don't know if that's a good or bad at all. I guess it's just it is what it is at the moment. So then that question of like, what do we want at this point?
Mhm.
And we've talked about that. Is like, when you do your own stuff, you're trying to create these projects, and what do we both want now? It's yeah, it's tricky, man. We are at the age, I
What's
guess.
what bakes my noodle with all of this is the idea that we've I know this is true for you too, but we've done this, like, what's the word? This pattern
Yeah,
so many times now that we know that's the pattern.
right.
So like I did this with teaching, I've done this with concept art. That's
Yeah,
why I started trying to like wanting to write. That's
yeah,
and then I got kind of bored with that. Now I want to art direct. So like trying to seek the new challenge is always something that ends up coming up.
yeah,
And I feel like we're at this age where like that's what it is now.
yeah.
And it like the romanticism of it is a loss. Well, not lost, but it's just
Well,
like
it's not lost.
you know the pattern enough that like you're okay with letting it sit for a bit.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think so.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people listening in would have no idea maybe what we're talking about. I'm sure some would understand.
Probably not, but
Um,
it it is one of those things that I think if we can find a way to kind of capture what it is in a way that like I would have understood it when I was a student, like that mastery for me, I'd say microcosm wise, let's say um one of my first jobs, you might remember this. I worked at Dairy Queen
yeah,
as like I slinged blizzards and I
yeah,
took orders and stuff like that. And when I first started, I was so nervous talking to people and doing that stuff and like
right.
the routine that like I would hide in the bathroom or I'd hide in the freezer
Mhm.
where all the ice cream's at and shiver and I was nervous. Like I didn't want to be out there and doing all that. but then you have to be out there and then you get used to it and you start doing it and it's just a mundane dumb thing.
Yeah.
But the more you do it, the more comfortable I got to the point where like it was not a challenge at all.
Yeah.
I could walk in and do any of those
Right.
jobs and it was the challenge gone made it even more mundane.
Yeah.
And maybe that's like a way to kind of connect to it like at a different level. But what I'm curious about is, so if this is kind of the human condition, like this is the pattern, you find a new thing, you chase it to its end, like what's wrong with that? Is that bad?
Yeah.
Is it,
Right.
taking a break from the rat race, okay, and then you just come back to it when something else kind of grabs you?
Right.
Does it make it easier for you to find like a new passion?
I think we can, because we have that strong drive to chase new things. Um,
Mm,
as you said, it's like we would have so much. We have the interest of learning new stuff, and I wouldn't even really call this like a mastery of it. It was just more like there's a sense of comfortability, this familiarity to the process that's so
yeah,
familiar.
that's a better
Yeah,
term.
because
Yeah.
I'm also aware of the fact that I'm, in the things that we do, let's say it's like speaking or teaching, within my own bubble, I'm comfortable and
Hmm.
confident in what I do with it, but in no comparison to the others that are out there. Because I could use that comparison and be like, well, I'm not as good as this person over here, and I should be chasing that. That actually doesn't even come into my frame of thought of awareness, if anything else. People can say like, what about like your drawing and art? It's like I'm aware of what's going on around me, but I'm not chasing anybody, not because I feel like I'm better or worse, that doesn't even come into my bubble anymore thinking. I don't have this interest of wanting to just go after comparisons of stuff. It's purely just self reflection on things. So because I feel so, as we're talking about, pattern oriented and familiar with our ways of doing things, that comfortness is when I'm a little bit like, I want to get out of that a little bit. Um, so I think that's why innately the reason why we always kind of like maybe clicked was due to the fact that we get bored of stuff very easily. And so
Hmm.
and that's in
It's
like
true.
everything in life, not just in what we do career wise, but it's like everything. So we look for that next thing, that next chase. And I recognized
Hmm.
this when I was very young, that I liked chasing things. And once I had it, it was like, okay, next thing, and it wasn't about
Hmm.
the complete control over it even too. It's just the fact that I was able to have the sense and the confidence to say, I got it. And
Yeah.
now what, so maybe that's kind of like what it feels like today as well too. Is like I need that, maybe that new chase, but it's not about a mastery of a new skill. And I could keep refining the current skills that I have, but that's, again, it's not a huge importance to me. It's going to happen naturally, is my understanding. But it's hard to break. It's definitely hard to break this current state of like
Yeah.
mode.
You know, I think I think what you were saying earlier is it kind of, it's even more accurate to that for me. Like the it's not part of the reason we were talking earlier about how like why am I still chasing the industry dream of getting
Right.
something made via industry? And I think that what you just said is kind of part of that. And what's interesting about it is that it's completely out of my control. Like the quality of what I make really has little to do with the success of it or not. It helps, but like
Yeah.
anything in this industry can stop it. Like if an actor or a producer that's attached to your thing like sprains their ankle and they just can't film it at that time, so their schedule gets realigned, you can lose a whole show for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Just somebody's like unable to do it at that time, and so it gets shelved, and then the thrust and the communal interest in whatever that topic might be is gone and past, and
Mm,
it's already so 2002 or whatever.
yeah.
That happens all the time. So like I think that what you just said is kind of part of why it's part of the answer to why I keep pushing in this one thing
Mm,
is like once I do that, then I could just say I did that
right.
because I have really no interest in doing it again.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just want to do it once.
Right. It's
It's weird, but I think you nailed it.
I certainly have examples of that happening quite often where I pursue that one
Mhm.
thing and I did it. It's like I want to do it
Yeah,
again, you know. Whether
same.
it's like a part two of a book, a continuation of a book, or a project
Mhm.
idea of something like that. Even though, yeah, I have continued some things, but they were much more consumable levels. And I think as we've like gotten older, our dreams, or I guess our pursuits of certain things that we want to do, have gotten larger of endeavor. So because of the stress
Hmm.
level that goes into producing that thing, trying to go through it again has no interest as much, because we'll chase it in the beginning because we're trying to figure that out, as difficult as may be. But once we got it, it's like, yeah, but maybe I'll start over or something else, you know. So I kind of see that happening, maybe even with me right now. Maybe that's what it is. But so I'm always talking about, like, oh, I have this other project going on. There's no new idea I'm playing with. I can't wait to get that one out. But then it's like, but I also have to do these books. It's like, and those books now seem
Hmm.
like a bit more like a chore, maybe in a way. Um,
Yeah, they kind of
just
become like a millstone. Like
yeah,
you're required to do this thing because you've
yeah,
already made this promise.
exactly. Interesting.
Ugh.
Well, either way, I don't think I've seen your cat. Is this one?
Oh, you haven't, huh? This is
No. Are
Kimchi.
you serious?
She's the one that's been yowling the whole time. Yeah, her name's Kimchi.
I can't hear.
The other
Is it a
one's
her
Moxie.
or a guy?
It, it's a cat.
Okay.
They're female, but they're cats.
How old is that
Yeah,
one?
she's very. They're like a little over a year now, right?
Over a year.
They're two and a. Really? They're 2.5, supposedly. I don't believe that at all.
And my
They're a
cat
year old. No,
Piper, remember her? She's
I remember Piper
she's 13 now.
is crazy.
Yeah,
Although I did think that she was older than that.
yeah, 13. Honestly,
Because,
I'm
like,
surprised she survived this long. So
really only 13?
yeah, I got her at 8 months, and this
She
is way back in like 2007 or something like that. I can't remember.
she's still with you, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, she's walking around.
Oh,
She
good.
sleeps all
Yeah.
day, and she has a couple of
Yeah.
small little things on her, but that's just age. Her breed type, being
It's
a
the same.
Scottish fold, they don't live super long compared to, like, let's say, what was
Really?
that
Okay.
Norm's cat, the Sphinx that he had? That thing lived to like 21 years old as an outdoor cat.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it really?
Yeah, it was an outdoor.
Oh my god, that's crazy. You
Yeah,
would well, I guess LA would be the place to do it if you're a Sphinx.
yeah.
But these tabbies, they live forever. Like the I don't know if you remember Toch from back in
Oh
the day,
yeah,
my original ginger cat.
yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
just died a couple of years ago.
Right.
I don't know when the other one died. Kate had him, but oh, I do remember she saw Kate had seen Norm's sphinxes, and
Yeah.
she loved them ever since, and now she has sphinxes.
Oh, is
I
that
think she has
right?
at least one. Uh,
You know
it's
that
pretty
that
awesome.
Sphinx
Oh, we
from
got.
Norm was famous, right? You
I
remember?
didn't know that.
So
How was?
Norm, his cat, the Sphinx, he had adopted, and it was from a litter, I guess it was called, right? A litter. I can't. Um, of another cat that was from the Austin Powers movie. Do you remember that cat in Austin Powers?
Oh,
That was like
yeah,
the
Mr. Bigglesworth.
Mr. Bigglesworth. That was like the father, or like something like that, of Norm's cat. So,
Nice.
yeah,
Wow, he was a Hollywood royalty.
yeah, that cat was. It lived outdoors. It was getting into constant fights. It would come back with scratches and bites and everything. It's crazy.
That's pretty badass.
Yeah,
Got some good questions here in chat.
yeah. If you want to go into one, you can. If you want to select one.
Sure. Any advice for how to move forward when you aren't clear on which projects you want to pursue as a beginner?
Hmm.
That's an interesting one because we're talking about it kind of like not necessarily end of state of that, but it's I would say for me, like in my mentorships with other students, it's always been about just go. It's not even about choosing something to be precious about. It's
Mm,
just about making stuff because and this was a lesson that I learned when I was young art wise was I learned very quickly not to be precious about anything I made
yeah.
and just basically treated it like it was trash.
Hmm.
My sketchbooks, all of that stuff. So I was never precious about any of it. I would just put garbage in it. I would just write random notes and then it got thrown into, a bookshelf. There was no like pouring over it. I know that nothing I'm doing is a masterpiece anyway. So just do the thing that you're interested in and having fun with, and let that be North Star, I guess. But what do you say? You're still a teacher, so only
Yeah,
half a grain of salt here.
I really don't want to get into like teacher mode in these like sort of conversations
Oh
with you,
yeah, fair point.
because I can
True.
so easily switch into that, and I think people are very aware of the kind of voice I have and the way I
And
speak when I go into that mode.
my answer was sufficient, sir. We now move on.
um,
See,
I'll say one thing: uh, just copy the crap out of stuff.
that's good. Oh, saying of which, I just ordered Black Sad.
What do you mean you ordered Black Sad? Like the latest graphic novel or the first one?
The first one, the first like Black Sad compendium with it's got the first three stories in it.
Oh, you never had it?
I've never had it.
Oh, it's
Never
good.
had it. Yeah, and
You've read it though,
I
right?
saw a YouTube video randomly. Huh?
You've read it though, haven't you?
I couldn't read Spanish then
Oh,
because you had it and it was in Spanish, wasn't it?
I guess it was, or it would have been French.
Yeah. Was it French? Maybe it was French. Yeah. Did you get it? Oh, we got it in Tahiti.
That's right. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Was
So
it?
it was.
Oh my
You're
gosh.
right. It was French. So the artist author is Spanish, like Spain
He is,
Spanish,
yes.
and he does sell like the original printing is in Spanish.
Right.
So I thought, in remembering that book that you had, I was thinking it was Spanish, but you're right. It was French
I completely
because I
forgot I
got a
even
bunch of
got that
French
in
comics
Tahiti.
back then too. There was a whole comic book store in that weird market we
Oh my
went to,
gosh. Dude, you just brought back a memory because I haven't thought about that in
right?
forever. I don't,
Same
I
here. I
remember
hadn't thought about
flashes of it, but
that.
I didn't
Yeah,
even realize we had visited a comic store in Tahiti. I guess we did. Um,
yeah.
my memory is poor, man. So I've forgotten a lot of things.
Mine is worse, but mine's very much the kind that only works when there's like some kind of stimulus that like sets it off, which is what happened with the Black Sad thing. I was just watching a YouTube channel on comics because that's one of my current venues I'm kind of chasing down now. We've talked about that before. Um, and they were talking about like really influential comics for them, and they brought up Black Sad. I was
Hmm.
like, oh shit, that's right. I really wanted to read that because it looks
Yeah.
so cool, but I never could because it was in, I thought it was Spanish, but it was in French.
So you never
So
read
I'm
any of the
ordering a
following
copy.
books afterwards?
I haven't read any of
Really?
them.
They're
I've
really
looked
good.
through them.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm keen. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm glad I ordered it. So that's
Yeah.
coming soon. It's cheap now. It's like $20
Oh yeah, they're so
for a,
readily available everywhere now.
they're so cheap. Yeah.
Yeah, Black Sad, dude, that's a great comic, and I've met the artist several times. Juano Guarnido, and do you know I met him in Paris one time?
Who that's the artist?
Yeah, Juano Guarnido.
No, I didn't know you met him.
It
That's
was
cool.
it was random. It was a big shock at the time too because I loved his stuff for a long time. Apparently ever since Tahiti. But I was out there in
Mhm.
Paris. I forgot what year. This is well before COVID. It must have been like 2017, 16. And I met up another artist, Tony Sandoval, amazing comic artist. And he's like, "Come out and let's go do like a drink and draw." And so I showed up into like one of these bars in Paris, and he said, "Well, I invited another artist," and Wano steps in. I didn't know who he was at first. And he's like, "Oh, my name is Wano, and I'm Peter." And we kind of talk. He's like, "You're the artist from Black Sad." He's like, "Yeah, yeah." So we just got to talking and drinking, and it was just me, Tony, and a bunch of
Dude,
his students as well too. It was awesome because the guy was super easy to talk to. We caught a cab together after our drinks and dropped us off in the hotel, and we traded a piece. He gave me an original, so I had that in a frame. So the fact that he still remembers me
that's
is
for
like,
you,
holy cow.
buddy.
Yeah.
That's for you. That's a flying fuck you, whatever.
Yeah. So I'll walk to Comic Cons when he's there. He still remembers me. So, we'll chat and say hi and everything like that. So
Oh,
I'm hoping to see him again when I get back there in Paris in next week because I'm going to meet up with Tony for a drink. Because I'm going to see if maybe Juan want to come hang out.
nice.
So, yeah, hanging out with a guy with Black Sad is
True.
pretty awesome.
Badass, dude. Shit, I wish I could send my books so you could get them signed and all that. That would be awesome.
Well, he comes
But
to primarily. He was here at San Diego this year, and then he showed up to New York. I saw him twice, San Diego then New York. He does those two shows now. It seems like in the U.S., which before during COVID, I
mhm,
think he stopped traveling for a minute, and then recent last year to this year, he started traveling a lot more again. 23, 24.
mhm.
Um, it's been cool to see him and Tony as well too. I don't think you ever met that guy, Tony Sandoval.
Sandoval? No.
Yeah.
When you first said Sandoval, I thought you said Sanders. I thought you were talking about Chris Sanders
No,
at
no.
first
Yeah.
because my hearing is terrible. But
Yeah, yeah.
Tony Sandoval, the name sounds familiar, but I don't think I've
Yeah,
met him
another
now.
cool comic artist. I think you guys would click so well, honestly. Uh, he's based out in Paris, Mexican. Um, and we met in Comic Con San
Hmm.
Diego, and we just got along really well together. So it was him and his brother. Dude's
What's
styles,
his book?
he has a bunch of different storylines and books.
Hmm.
You have to just look him up. He has a specific sort of like look to his artwork. Um,
Yeah,
and a primary character he uses a lot of time as well too. But his stuff is great. Tony Sandoval.
Sandoval. He's from Mexico.
Yeah, I forgot what
That's
part.
badass.
Awesome dude. You've probably seen it.
Oh yeah, I have seen his work. Yeah, he's got kind of a. It's like what was his name? He used to sell his paintings for like $30,000.
Oh, I don't know about that. Yeah, I don't
Uh,
know.
yeah, he was really big when we were in school, and he did these like kind of slightly deformed, cutesy girl characters.
Right.
Very Ryden,
Mark
Ryden,
Ryden.
Mark Ryden.
Yeah.
Yes,
That
it
guy's
reminds me of Mark Ryden.
that aesthetic essentially. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, the aesthetic. Yeah, he's great. This is amazing. Wow,
The guy got
we even kind of look similar.
oh yeah. Yeah, you're looking at him right now? Yeah.
He's one of my doppelgangers. God damn it.
Yeah. Yeah, he's
Oh my
super cool.
god,
Easy to talk to.
that's great.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
couple of people I've met over
his
the
work.
years, after we left Art Center and certain people, artists that work in the industry. And every time I would meet them, I don't know why, but for some reason, if I meet someone that I think would work or I guess would click well with you, like you would be the first one to hop in my head for some reason. Like Spirited was the same sort of effect. When I met him the first time, I was
Hmm.
like, man, Izzy would love this guy. And then when I met Tony, I was
Yeah,
like, man,
he's
Izzy
fun.
would love this guy. I don't know why that pops into my head all the time. Why you're the first one that thought.
I gotta come. I gotta come out there and do these things. I'm too nervous.
Yeah, I mean, I know you talked about that nervousness, and I think I had
Yeah.
mentioned in our last talk when we were just hanging out, like it's no longer about you being maybe even a part of that community and not being have to be afraid of it. Just do your own thing at this point. Start your own stuff around your
Yeah.
local area. If you happen to come across these
Hmm.
people again or the community, that's fine. You do what you got to do, but
Hmm.
yeah, I don't think you have to like force it and have this sort of pressure to think like, oh, I gotta get back to LA and get to know all these people again. You don't really know them anymore. They're not really your friends.
That's too much.
Yeah.
I would much rather kind of connect with comics and
Yeah.
comic people, like because I think I told you I met like the Helioscope crew up here, and they're all so like they're so kick ass. They're really really nice people,
Is that an
and they're
independent
all
comic
like
publisher?
so Helioscope itself, as I understand it, is not a publisher at all. It's a studio,
Mm,
and it's almost like a co-op. And if you're a member, you get table space. You get a studio to hang out with other people that are doing the same thing as you. And then almost everybody that's there is working on their own books, or they're working professionally for, you know, um, Dark Horse or Marvel or DC. Like they have contracts and they're just working on their own project. It's just this communal space
mm.
where all these comic book artists get together. And I was like, this is dope.
That's pretty
So I
cool.
went, like, it helped me. I went and visited this last year, I'd say like once every few weeks for several months.
Yeah.
And it was like a lifesaver because it's just nice to connect to other art people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
When I was like, hunting, the work hunt was brutal. So yeah, Jazz can attest. I got pretty depressed there for a while, just sitting
Well,
around.
I think the last couple
Yeah.
of years for a lot of people in the field were pretty rough. I mean,
Hmm.
especially for you after COVID, having to like relocate back up to Portland and selling that boat, and that boat was a harrowing experience, I'm sure. So I'm sure all those stresses and a lot of other stuff there too. I'm sure easy for you. Um,
Harrowing but fun.
yeah,
And I set out to go and do it. I learned how to sail, decided to live on the boat, and then I did it. Now I never need to do it again.
yeah. I
Just
think
like we were talking about.
right. So this question I think is associated to that from Kiwi. What steps do I need to take keep improving as a self-taught artist. Um, with art schools and help in that situation, I think it really comes down to like what we're even doing, just talking to fellow artists. Um, dude, I was so
Yeah.
surprised that Sherry shut down in Portland, in Oregon.
Oh yeah,
I didn't know that.
they're all gone.
It's like
Yeah.
that was our spot.
They-
We used to go to Sherry's all the time. So when I
yeah.
was there this
I
last
mean,
December, I was like, oh man, all the whole institution is just shut down. I didn't realize.
crazy.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
people
and it
don't
was kind of
know,
like a shock.
right? Like Sherry's in Oregon is like a diner essentially.
Hmm.
And me and
Yeah.
Izzy used to go to them after class. I don't even know what. I can barely remember what we did, but we somehow were just there at
It
nighttime.
was it was a shitty Denny's. It was worse than
Basically, yeah,
Denny's in some ways,
yeah,
but it was like more cozy. They
yeah,
had booths and they had like crappy breakfast foods that were cheap, and it was open 24 hours
right,
all day.
yeah.
They didn't close.
Ah,
I think not until really late.
yeah.
If they did,
But I
because
feel like we're always
maybe
there
they did
late.
always there. I mean, we could have easily spent, if you put it all together, it would have been months at Sherry's drawing and like hanging out and doing what we're doing now, just talking shit,
Yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gone. Institution is gone. And it
Crazy.
wasn't just us, it was like all of our friends, all the teens of like, our age. We couldn't go to bars. They
Exactly.
did allow smoking for a long time, so you could
Damn,
smoke inside.
remember?
You remember that?
Oh, I
Yeah.
don't. My memory is so
Yeah.
fuzzy at times. It feels like a completely different
I
lifetime.
I would smoke sometimes at church. I only remember it when we talk about it. It doesn't even cross my mind
I don't remember you
otherwise.
smoking
But we're
clothes,
talking about
but
it
not
now.
inside. I just don't remember smoking inside, but I guess that was the
Yeah,
case.
yeah.
Wow,
There was smoking. There were smoking sections in some of them. Yeah.
crazy.
So I did smoke inside a few times. Yeah. It's a long, long time ago.
Well, again,
But
people
yeah,
don't
weird,
understand
huh?
like what we would do. We'd have conversation, but we'd be sketching all night, and we
Yeah.
would create things. I'd make up characters. You would make up characters. We practice stuff. I used to copy a lot of comics, Joe Mad stuff, and then we would like
Hmm.
switch books
Yeah.
sometimes, and like you would work on my pieces, I'd work on yours, and that was kind of our dynamic on that sense of like what we did at Sherry's, and that's why it was so. When I saw it shut down, I was like, oh, that's too bad. It'd be nice
Yeah.
to like step in there once in a while.
Yeah. I guess we have to explain. This is kind of the answer to the question about like being self-taught
Yeah,
and art school and all of that is
yeah,
like one of the things for us that like it changed my life meeting Pete because I did draw a bit, but Pete was like on a whole other level. Like he'd actually had training and did it constantly. So I essentially attached to Pete like a remora and just tried to learn everything I could from this kid. It was amazing. And then I started to learn, and then I really got into it, started trying to train myself. And so we were exchanging like comics, how to draw books, all sorts of things, the manga books back in the day, the model books. And then we would just sit and draw
yeah,
together all
yeah,
the time. We'd hang out, we'd play video games, we would drink just an absurd amount of Dr. Pepper
yeah,
and draw. We were massive nerds with no lives.
yeah.
So there you go. That's the solution. Find a buddy and draw all the time. But we still went to a super expensive college.
Yeah, we did.
So
We did go to expensive college. So if the follow up question is about getting into the art community in that case, I mean we formed our own community from there. But even in a college, you still have to form your own community. It's not like you're trying to break into something that's already
sure.
been. I mean, yeah, there are established things, but we got to find our own people as we go along. So it's better to make sure
Hmm.
you just put yourself out there and come across individuals, whether it's like in your local area, with a school that you go to, or cafes that you need to kind of hang out with. But if you don't have just people you draw with, I mean, for me, as Izzy is saying, it was a life altering thing. It was for me as well too. Thinking back, if that sort of like connection never happened, I mean, we'd be very different individuals. I'm sure there's like a multiverse of us that wouldn't have gone that
Oh yeah.
route, and who knows what kind of
Oh,
people they would have turned
100%.
out to.
We're both mechanics somehow. I'm sure
Probably.
of it. Yeah.
Who
I'd
knows?
say I am one of those few people, modern folks, that's a big proponent of big top education. I learned a ton in school, but also a huge part of that had to do with the motivation and like that obsessive need to like if not master something, at least like understand it that we've been talking about. And I have witnessed, so like I say, yes, go to college, work your ass off, pay off your debts, get it done because it's going to be valuable. But that said, there's not everybody that has gone, even our peers that did exactly the same stuff
Yeah.
ended up going anywhere with it.
Yeah.
And now they're still in debt. So it's a gamble. It's totally a gamble. And a lot of it, you can affect the outcome by how you work and how you approach learning this stuff. But, you know, you just got to be careful and know yourself enough to take that risk. Um, I knew that I was obsessive enough and competitive enough
Yeah.
that I would find work, which is part of why I'm so like my shit's all messed up now is because the industry's completely dropped out from under me.
Mm.
And it doesn't matter how good or confident or skilled you are. Now it can be anything. Like, you know, you could be a success and it doesn't necessarily have to do with that.
Yeah.
Maybe your style is applicable to a project and boom, you become an art director or creative director. That can happen. So it's all scrambled. Everything that we thought we knew is scrambled. So again, you know, I'm not giving you the hard answer. I'm just saying what worked for me. Um, yeah,
Do you think any of this stuff that's happened now was predictable for us back then? Like the state of the industry or the things that we'd end up doing, or I could have imagined if I was younger, like I would wanted to have stayed, inside the industry as long as possible. Obviously, reality
hmm
is very different, and we realize new things. But I wonder the stuff that's going on today in our field would have been if there was any evidence of like the direction it was going back then. Which is there any things that we can see today of where it could lead into the next 10 years?
that's a really, really good concept to consider. The only thing that I feel confident saying was predictable was that the economy of it would drop out from itself.
Hmm.
That like a perfect example is not Industrial Light and Magic. What was that company that did the Life of Pi?
Oh,
Uh, they did a documentary on this poor company,
yeah,
and I remember because I was there at that time. I wasn't at the studio, but it's so crazy. I went to a bar in the aftermath after they had done their union strikes and stuff like that, trying to get control of how effects houses were getting paid.
hmm,
So for those of you that don't know, with effects houses, how it works is let's say you're doing a new Marvel movie and you have 300 shots that need, Thor punching Tony Stark in the dick,
yeah,
and they all have to be top-notch stuff. It used to be back in the day, you would go to an effects house and they would handle all your shots. But back in the day, it would be 15 shots or 20 shots for the whole movie
yeah,
that would need that level of CG or even better, it would need practical effects. And you would go to a practical house and then that studio would get paid and they were specialists and they did that thing. And they were paid for what they worked on. And everybody that was doing the pre-production for it, the director, your storyboard artists, they worked really hard to know exactly what was going to be made. And then they went to these effects houses and hired them to do exactly that.
mm,
And so there was no waste. When CG started to come into it, what they could do is change their minds very easily and cheaply. And you had all of these studios that would do CG, computer graphic effects
hmm,
for films and whatever. And they had more shots to do. In order to get more shots done, they would start hiring more
right,
houses, more CG houses to do, or effects houses to do one project.
yeah,
So you would end up with 3, 5, 6 vendors
yeah,
that support your project that you're working on, and then it became competitive. So then you would have to, if you were running, if let's say you and I had an effects studio together, we wanted to compete for this next new Marvel, Iron Man dick punching movie, we would have to say, okay, we know that there's 20 other people out there that are dying for this work.
hmm,
They have to feed their artists, they got to keep their studio afloat. So do we. So we start underbidding
right,
the other studios to make sure that we get the work. And that's what happened. They drove themselves into the ground because of the capitalistic structure of the cinema houses, the big production studios, saying, well, we can get it cheaper over here, we can get it
Of
cheaper over
course.
here.
Right.
And then they outsourced out of country, and it just became this massive, like, glass boat, and it's collapsed. And that's everybody saw that coming.
Yeah.
But how bad it hit and the continuation of it, I don't think so. I don't think anybody could have seen AI really doing what
Sure.
it's doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't. Like most of us we knew that tech would become a thing and that it would contribute. I mean, for example, you and I started our illustrative careers immediately after kind of the big pop boom with airbrushing and traditional medium, your Drew Struzan stuff.
Hmm.
That was everything.
Yeah.
Like, if we had started our careers like 15 years earlier, we would be fucked right now because we wouldn't have learned
Oh,
Photoshop
absolutely.
until late
Right.
in our adulthood. Whereas, like, when we came up, we knew Photoshop before we even got to college.
Yeah.
So, like, I knew that technology would shift. I did not expect things like AI, where what they would do is introduce technology that doesn't like make your job easier. It just
Sure.
takes away the creativity of
Right.
your
Right.
job.
Right.
Like, that I did not see coming. That
Mm.
color me a dum dum. So anyway, sorry. That was
No. No. No.
that was long winded, but I thought that was a really interesting question. What do you think?
No. I mean, I agree with
What
everything you're saying. I
what
mean,
could we have seen it coming?
a lot of this stuff for sure. I'm sure there were signs of stuff. Of course, we can't fully ever predict exactly what path it will end up to, but there are definitely signs of things like in an economy, or whether it's in things like in realty, or whatever case is. It's stuff that you can see where bubbles are starting to grow, and how management is starting to kind of balance things. Um, Even now, I'm pretty sure that that cycle and repetition will probably happen again, um, 10
Hmm.
years down the line. And of course, if anything else, that pattern will probably become a lot more predictable because the cycles are getting faster. Um,
Hmm.
Technology wise, still, who knows, but I can kind of imagine where it will go. But there are definitely signs now which are people more aware of, like the AI stuff is putting up red flags. Back then, Photoshop
Hmm.
coming up for us in high school, it wasn't a red flag to us. It was like, oh, an opportunity to play with something as a tool. But
Hmm.
now, like, everything is basically something as a warning of like to take away creativity of our process, um, which is
Yeah.
interesting because back then, when we were in our teens, from the 90s to 2000s, any technology was an exciting thing that would help us to grow creatively. But now technology is seen as
Ooh,
everything we take, anything being put out is there to take away from us creatively. So I wonder if that can be flipped.
interesting. I have a counterpoint to that.
Yeah.
Actually, there is a point where we could say we should have seen AI coming
Yeah.
and doing what it does.
Yeah.
Do you remember, like, back in the Elfwood and Deviant Art days, when there were a couple of artists that used photo reference
No, right.
and they made it so realistic looking that people just called them out for using photos in
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
paintings? And I mean, people were lynched for this
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
There were a couple of artists, I can't remember her name. Um, she did, I don't, now it wouldn't even matter.
No.
Like, we literally photo bash now.
Right.
We're just like, yeah, I use photos.
Exactly.
Who cares? Uh, but back then it was such a huge deal.
Oh,
Like, oh, you're a
absolutely.
digital artist. This is why nobody takes digital art seriously. You're just using a photo. Like, goddamn, that happened.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, AI
But
does the
then,
same thing, exponentially greater, but it is
yeah,
the same effect. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
So
So
maybe
and
signs of that,
yeah.
which we wouldn't have picked up on, but it shows the repeating cycle again.
Mm,
Yeah, it's
hmm.
kind of
Hmm.
crazy.
There is a reverse theory I could put forth. Have you ever read the book The Diamond Age?
No, I haven't.
It's Neil Stevenson, the guy that wrote Snow Crash.
Okay.
A
Yeah.
great book. It's actually one of my favorite books of his, and
Yeah.
it's a post cyberpunk story. And the base premise of it is it's set in this distant future after all the cyberpunk nonsense that you've seen in, like, Cyberpunk the game, for example.
Right.
And what's happened is there is now essentially a pipeline of molecular printing available to the public at large. Anybody, anywhere, in whatever apartment they're living in, can print
Mm.
shoes,
Yeah.
jackets,
Yeah.
glasses, books. They can print anything they need to do to live. They can print food.
Yeah.
So they basically have a UBI. There's just a guaranteed level of living for everybody, which is almost kind of a utopia in a
Don't
sense.
they do this in Star
But at the
Trek too?
same time, yes, the Star Trek takes it in a different
Right.
direction, but yeah, the same idea of the utopia of the
Right.
Federation
Right.
is that they take away the need for money,
Right.
because it's about, the quality of life
Yeah.
and making sure that everybody has what they need. So Diamond Age is different in that capitalism still exists. It's not like nulled out by virtue of the Federation. In Diamond Age, how it shifts, and this is what I posit might happen here, is because everybody has access to everything that they need,
Hmm.
those things become kind of mundane
Yeah.
because they're made the same, they're all the same, they have the same recipes. All, it's like getting McDonald's, it's going to taste the same no matter where you go.
Right.
And then in this world, there are artisans that make shit by hand.
Yeah.
They'll make your sweaters, they'll make your chair, they make candles, they make glass. And the imperfections of it, the humanity of
Right.
it, makes it inherently more
Of
valuable.
course. Right.
So these people that learn that are like tradespersons and craftspersons that do these specific specialized things are rich as shit
Mm.
because they're the only ones that can do that. You can't get a machine to copy that. Like
Right.
there is something about it.
Right.
So it's possible. I'm not saying that's guaranteed, but it's possible we might end up going the Diamond Age
I
route.
can
Wouldn't
see
that be
that
great?
direction. I can see that direction happening, which is what I've
Yeah.
been touting.
Yeah.
That when people ask, even like here right now in the chat, people are asking about AI and what should we do and how do we incorporate it into our process. But and of course, the big question of do you fear it? And I don't, because of that premise of what you're talking about. It makes our things as a craft that much more valuable and sought after potentially. Potentially. Is it at that point just
Potential.
yet? Maybe not. But I think there are examples of this in different parts of culture and industry where that it kind of exists. It's kind of going that route, recognized in terms of its value, but the balance of it is still on the side of corporate, elements. For instance, things like sneakers, fashion.
Hmm.
Nike and Adidas will still cut out a large part of that market in terms of money and financial, income. But the independent, let's say like craftsmen that can hand make these shoes, they're going to sell those individual pieces far greater of a price, and there is a market for it. People will pay for that. It's just that, of course, not that many people know about it, so they're not going to get as much sales comparison to because they don't have the marketing, let's say, engine or something like this to get out there and get in front of people's eyes. So, but at the same time, even simple comparison of like me making a drawing on Photoshop, printing it out, and doing a sketch on paper. Obviously, someone's going to pay way more for the original piece than for the printed piece, even though I did both
Hmm.
pieces. So, no, I think that will be an interesting direction where it goes around. I mean, for sure, the idea of being a lot more financially rewarded for these sort of things would be great as well too. But I can see it. That'd be interesting. What was the book again?
That book is The Diamond Age.
Diamond
I
Age.
highly recommend reading it. It's an excellent book. It's
Yeah,
one of my favorites, like from that period of time.
check it out. Diamond
Um,
Age.
I read a lot still, so there's a bunch of new ones, but that one is always going to hold a good place in my heart. It's one of
The
the few
Diamond
times
Age.
that,
Okay.
that Neil Stephenson wrote something and ended it well.
Yeah.
He's not good at endings, but I love that guy. That guy comes up with ideas that you can't even grasp,
Mm,
and he's so ahead of his
nice.
time.
Nice.
But the other aspect to the artisanal future is that one of the things that AI promises to do is to democratize creativity, right? Like, why should those bourgeoisie, super poor art students with insane debts be the only ones that can make the art, right?
Right.
Like, that's their argument that these rich, tech bros give us in support of AI. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I hear you. There is an aspect that these people did train to learn this, and this does kind of make this the ability to make this imagery more accessible for everyone, but then
Mm,
also like taste is lost.
yeah.
You lose a lot of the things that are byproducts
Yeah.
of that training and the interest and the passion for those things. So the danger in the artisanal future that we're talking about, which is a possibility and would be great for us because we already know how to make these things by hand, is that because it's been democratized, the people that know how to do that become even more unique
Yeah.
and special. Like the democratization actually ended up creating a bigger separation
Chasm.
between
Yeah.
that. I mean, we can tie this directly to economics and our socioeconomic situation. You have your 1%
Yeah.
that has billions and billions and billions, and then the remaining
Right.
99%, nothing,
Yeah.
like comparatively nothing. So what you're doing by doing the democratization is you're eliminating the middle class
Yeah.
of artists. So then you only have your Mark Rydens and your most
Exactly.
incredible artists,
Right. Right.
and then you have everybody else that can just pump some prompts.
Right.
And
Which is everybody
that
else.
there's so much market in that middle space.
Hmm.
And that's one of the things I would always tell my students is like, it's fine to aim for Pixar, it's fine to aim
Sure.
for, um Weta, but there's so much other work out there to do.
Right.
And those are the places where there's money to be made. There's huge ground to be put forward. And unfortunately, that's where AI has come in and put in a big old wedge.
Right. Right.
And it's just separating that
Much more.
even more. So that's the downside. Doom and gloom, baby.
Yeah.
I'm the
I,
worst.
I don't even
I'm
know
so
if
bad I snorted.
we would even belong in that 1%. If that were to truly happen, we would fall into that middle section, if anything
Oh
else.
yeah. We would absolutely end up
Yeah.
in the middle of the road. Yeah.
Yeah. So we
No
would be
question.
lost.
Because that's one of those things we don't have control over that. That gets into like the gallery market, right? Like the
Mhm.
kingmakers in the galleries that decide who's going to be the new hot thing. The ones that decide that a painting is worth $30,000 or $1 million or whatever.
Yeah.
It's messy, man.
I
There's
think
there's a gross capitalist like overtone to everything.
the sad thing is that it would force some of those middle people to go down into
Hmm.
that mass appeal, which is
Hmm.
unfortunate. That's where then again everything becomes mundane, and the majority of the stuff you'll look at just becomes that same regurgitation over and over and over again. That would be a horrible
Yeah.
world.
That's the kind of the painting, if you will, that Neil Stevenson is putting together with this book is what kind of life is it being in that, that middle of the road
Yeah.
where yeah, you have everything you need, but what is it even to be human anymore?
Yeah.
Like you've removed creativity, you removed joy, and all it is existence and being, meat for the meat grinder. And that's not fun.
It's just I
What
would
is it to
say
be human?
that experience of watching something on television and all of a sudden realizing what you're seeing is the most neutral, mundane, uninspired, uncreative piece you've ever looked at. And it was a big corporation producing this, and they weren't shy about outing that, hey, we made this through AI. It was Coca-Cola.
Mhm.
I don't know if you watched that commercial. I don't. You probably don't watch that much television anymore.
I don't
But
watch commercials at
yeah,
all, but I
it's
did see YouTube videos talking about
oh my
this,
gosh, yeah.
so I know what you're talking
I had no idea
about.
anything about it, so I'm not into like watching all those videos of arguments of back and forth of what's right and wrong. But that commercial did pop up, and I knew instantly, of course, what I was seeing. And what was shocking is just how boring it was. Whether or not it was done through AR, I don't, whatever. But the fact is, when I watched it, it was just terrible. It was horrible to look at. It had no
Yeah.
story, had no inspiration. You could tell the people that actually produced it just pooped it out. It's like had nothing there. Um, and if that kind of advertisement is now applied to everything in our lives, from things like packaging to advertisements and marketing and fashion to transportation to the world around us, man, that's everything around us being like that. It's gonna be horrible, man.
Arguably, it's already begun.
Yeah,
I mean, we're talking about, shows being written effectively by algorithm where, yeah, there's a person writing it, but the decisions at the top, the executive decisions are being made by like, our numbers show this and
yeah,
this and this.
exactly.
So you have to have this, you
It's all
have to have
algorithm
that,
based.
you have to say this. It's already starting, and we're already seeing the outcome of that. And
Right.
generally speaking, people hate it. But what's crazy is, and I was just watching a YouTube video essay on this. God, we're gonna have to start doing like full blown diction at the end where we explain all of the links and books and all of that stuff.
I have
That's
to.
not for now. We'll have
Yeah,
to hire someone to do that. But
yeah,
anyway, I watched this video essay where they were talking about the homogenous uh, films and TV that come out via like streaming services, and how there are shows that are like completely forgettable that are clearly algorithmically written,
Hmm.
but in terms of numbers of views, they are absolutely at the top. And the reason they are is because everybody is in a multi-screen household now.
Right.
So they design shows that where the plot is super simple, where the characters are going to where they say repeatedly what they're doing because they know that the people that are watching are
Yeah.
on their phone,
Yeah.
only half paying attention.
Right.
And those shows are the ones that are rising to the top. Not the good ones. They're there,
Yeah.
but the fact that these things are taking top dog ticket is crazy.
Mm.
And this is what happens. Like you eat like the opiate of the masses is very consumable, even if it
Mm.
is terrible. So you're totally right. That Coke advert was terrible,
Ugh.
but
Yeah.
people watched it.
Oh yeah, they did.
No
Um,
teaspoon in it.
there's this comment here from it's a
Hmm.
what is his username? CNMTN. He's from Malawi. You want to make an animation, but kind
Hmm.
of scared with how the industry is treating the animators. Any advice on that? The reason why I brought that question up is because I actually just watched the film yesterday. It was actually nominated for the Golden Globe. Did you see it? Flow, the one about the little cat. You should,
No, not yet.
you
It's
should
on
check
my
it out.
list. I
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know
I
what
do
I'm
want to
talking
see
about?
it.
Flow.
Yes.
And I watched it yesterday, and it was apparently I had no
I
idea what it
think
was
like
about.
one person,
It was one person,
right? Or two?
something like that. Aaron
Yeah.
Blaze posted about it on Facebook. I just remember seeing the poster for it. I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. And I was found the place I could watch it. So I watched it, and it was pretty good. I mean, just from the fact that it was made by potentially one or two persons on Blender, it was just done on Blender, the
Mm-hmm.
whole thing, and it won the Golden Globes awards and a bunch of different awards and screen sort of like film festivals. So
Yeah.
that was kind of a refreshing sort of thing to watch
Yeah.
because it was unique and interesting. It actually did make me want to know more about its world, but it only kind of gives you elements and pieces of it about this fantasy place. So that's worth a
Mm-hmm.
watch, I would say. Flow. Can't. Yeah, that's what
I
it's
will
called.
check that out.
Flow or
That's
Flow. Yeah.
Where did you see it? YouTube?
No. What is that? The streaming site Prime was it?
Oh, Amazon? Okay. I will check it out. Yeah. I remember seeing the ad on YouTube and being like, "Damn, that's cool."
Yeah.
And being impressed that one person did all of that. But
Oh no, it's
hearing you
Fandango
say
at
that
home.
it's like, huh?
Fandango at home.
Oh, Fandango.
Yeah.
I've never used that. I don't even know how to go about that. I'm old. I'm an old man. But that's one way to tackle it. Yeah. Like just try to the hardest part, I think, to go slightly teacher mode is making sure that when you're working on a project on your own and you want to do something that's kind of big, is to make sure you control your scope and not over promise something to yourself,
Yeah.
which is what I'm super guilty of. I'm really bad about I'll get an idea and then I get really fixated with it, and then what I end up making would take, a team of 20 or 30 people like 3 years to do and actually accomplish. So I end up with nothing really, but like kind of a fancy idea. So where this guy did something is he took this world that he wanted to share and he did, vignettes, right? And like a short sequence in it. How long is it total?
An hour and 10 minutes, an hour and something.
Oh shit. So I mean it's
Long.
actually a full length
It was
feature,
full feature, yeah.
but it's not you wanted to learn more, so there he must have cut down somewhere. Maybe he even cut down on like the scope of the story where
Most
it's
likely,
about a
yeah.
cat
Oh, for
instead of
sure, yeah.
something else. But
I mean, there's no dialogue.
controlling your scope, yeah.
It was interesting. I don't know. I mean, last time we had talked, we talked about the idea of like breaking things down to more consumable pieces for you. Where getting something
Hmm.
out there physically at a show and like making a whole comic, especially the entire endeavor, is really quite difficult. So
Mm,
I can't imagine how else you want to go about that. I think trying to tackle the entire
yeah,
thing is just at our point and what we want to do is
it's
just too
hard.
much.
It's one of those things where it's like it's a logistical nightmare because you have to wear so many hats. You have to be a producer for yourself. You have to be, the HR for your, you have to handle all the jobs. And more than likely you're not being paid while you make this thing, which is what
Right.
was happening with my comic. So I had a comic I was working on. I still want to finish it. It is in progress. It's like 50% of the way done.
Yeah.
It's entirely written, but I had to take a break from that because I needed to start earning money
Right.
because like my savings were just going way down.
Yeah.
So it's it's a challenge. Do it when you're young.
Yeah.
Try and control scope. Do it when you're young, but do it as if you were 65 years old and you
Well,
only
yeah.
had that limited amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So control your scope, but have the energy to do it.
What are you gonna try to do
Real
this
quick,
year?
I can answer this one.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
What's that?
Go ahead. You can answer your question first if you want.
No, no, no. You first, because
Um,
yours is pertinent.
what were you gonna try to do this year? Do you have any plans now that's like beginning of 2025? Do you have any thoughts about what you're trying to do for this year at all? Do you plan things out like month to month to month, or do you even have a thought about what you want to do?
I am the worst organized planner. I am so bad at it. And this is one of the things I've always envied about you is your ability to just be like, this is what needs to happen. Um, what I have is like a a bird's nest of ideas,
Mm,
and many of them are cogent and worked through. Some of them are written, actually finished stories, but then making them into something, I got to do them at some point. So that's the thing is like each new year, okay, I got some projects that I could be doing, but I have all of these other ones that I never finished. So it's kind of like what you were talking about with your previous books. Like you got to do this next thing you've already promised, and it kind of becomes a chore. So that's where I'm at with all of these things. I have a ton of ideas and a ton of projects that I would love if I had, time, money, support to do them,
yeah.
that I would love to churn them out. But they've been sitting on the shelf for so long. So the one that is the most finished right now is the comic, and I would love to finish it. I did one comic a couple of years ago that was 22 pages, and I did it in like 6 months, 3 months, like somewhere in there. I can't remember exactly. It was before COVID. It was right before COVID. I finished it, and like I was in it. Like I was so focused. But with this new one, it's like half that amount of pages, and my focus is just shot. Even though it's a cool story, I want to tell it, but it's like weirdly shot. So my hope is if I can earn enough with these like short contract gigs, then I can spend some time, purchase a lot of speed or Adderall and just douse it into my veins and then focus for like 2 or 3 months on just an Adderall binge and get this damn comic done. Because I
Well, it's
want to, you're right. I want a product. I want to start going to comic shows and
yeah,
connecting with comic creators because I feel like they've got the right idea. It's hard to make an animation all by yourself. It's hard to make a
exactly
movie all by yourself.
right.
I've been trying to do that, and it's exhausting and soul destroying.
Yeah,
So I want to tell stories. I just need to find my uh delivery system.
yeah. That's what I would do in your shoes. Just like find that first show coming up, whatever that may be. Use that as your deadline, and whatever you have, just take it with you.
New York is the next one, isn't it?
New York is
No,
in October. San Diego's in July. There's
San Diego's the next one.
July at San Diego. But what is the other one? There's WonderCon in March. I look at the one in Seattle. That one's like in April or something like that. May.
Yeah, that's Emerald, right?
Yeah, Emerald City.
Emerald City, and then we have Rose City here.
Yeah, I don't know when that one happens.
I think they're around the same time, but they're before Comic Con in San Diego,
Yeah,
and they're reasonably big. I went to the Rose City one like in 2022,
yeah.
and it was pretty good. There was some really incredible artists there.
I would recommend that Rose City one for sure. Being local, and again, not with the
I gotta
intention of like
do it.
trying to finish a whole book and comic, but just take what you have with you to even just promote and just kind of get an idea of response, basically. You can have
Yeah.
stuff you can sell still, whether it's like art prints or maybe like a one shot, maybe like a preview book or something like this. Um,
Mhm.
but I would say this year will be a strong year maybe for you to do that. One else,
I think you're
essentially.
right. I think
Yeah,
it's time to get something out. I just gotta. I have to get organized. Like it's so hard for me. I
Yeah.
got that super mega ADHD or something. I don't know. It blows.
Well, with your priority with the current job right now, I'm sure it'll be tough to kind of separate yourself from that. But
Yeah.
just do what you can, man.
We'll see. I mean, that's the thing is like I, you know, I'm thinking now about like retirement, not necessarily retiring,
Yeah.
but like how I'm going to be able to afford living, you know, after 50, I'm 45 now, so I'll be 50 in just a few years.
Yeah.
You know, standard retirement, isn't that crazy? And then standard retirement age is what, like 67 or
Now
something like
it's
that
gone up from
now.
65. I think it's like 67. Yeah, 68, something. I can't remember.
Yeah, and the folks coming into the administration this term are looking to up the retirement age. They want it to be like 76 or whatever, and like, bro, I don't, I can't. We do such a specialized and specific thing that like, the idea of like working as a greeter at Walmart, I would just blow my brains out. And it's not because it's not a good job. It's just because like it would be so frustrating not to be able to do what I do best.
Yeah.
And there will come a time. I mean, already, my eyes are going. Uh, my hands are still good, but my eyes are absolutely being affected by this work and my health. It's going to get worse.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a point where like being able to tell stories the way I want to is not going to be possible. And I have to prepare for that. So that's part of this drive, is just like knowing like there is a future decrepit version of me that's just not going to be able to do what
Oh,
I
for
want,
sure.
and I got to prepare for that jackass. You know that I have a very dark sense of humor, and it's taking all of my control not to go down that vein. But we
Oh,
are
that's
on
fine. Like
YouTube.
this, in terms of what this is about, it's that's fine. Wherever you want.
Yeah.
Um, no, I
Hmm.
mean I feel the same way to some degree. I mean, probably it's going to be more of a thought and a mentality as the next couple of years. Probably this year probably will be a big one. Um, yeah, I'm sure that'll be another conversation we can have again in the next round.
Yeah.
But we
Well,
can,
well, what we should do is like maybe we should if we're not going to do questions per se, maybe we should do like topics, and maybe like the next one is like projects for this year, like what
yeah.
can we do, how
Today
can
was
we
a little bit
organize
scattered
that
in
kind of
terms of like
stuff.
just talking about stuff. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I think setting
Well,
up
it's your
topics will be
call, like.
fine. I mean, I don't mind taking questions as well. So I just don't want to be overrun with
Yeah.
just our natural just conversations with things. And as commented,
Mhm.
I also don't want to go into teacher mode as well too, because it's so easy for me to
Yeah,
put that on. So I think having topics
same.
to kind of keep us directed is okay with me. It doesn't have to be singular. It can be like a couple of topics we can kind of touch upon
Yeah,
and move on from there, and then take a few questions as we go along, as we did today.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that's probably going to be
Well,
it.
one of the things I think that would be good for us to get out of this would be kind of like this being, Sherry's again,
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
why I imagined it.
where if we're not working directly at the moment, but somehow like still encouraging each other to keep pushing and doing those things like we used to. Like I would love to have something like that again. Like
Yeah.
God, if only Sherry's was still around, right?
Well, at the same
And
time,
we didn't
maybe
have
not.
relationships and all
Yeah,
the
that's
other
it's a long time ago. That's when we were
the
kids.
other things.
Yeah, but that's when we've talked about doing this just to like hang out and talk. That's the way I imagined it. Also, I didn't want it to be so like set up
Yeah,
and
formal.
too controlled with manner of how we
Right.
speak and the way we kind of do things. Um, so yeah, I think more natural, just conversation would be better for sure. And
Makes
if
sense.
people have
Yeah.
curiosity of stuff, we can then touch upon them based on our interests. We can definitely
Hmm.
go into them. But I would say even a lot of things people are asking about naturally, we just kind of like touch upon anyways because they're just common
Sure.
topics these days. But I
Yeah.
don't know if we can keep going down and do this for next time. I would say like once a week, the other week I'm okay with. But whatever you
Sign me
think.
up. Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
I just need to. I would love to figure out a way to simultaneously stream to my channel.
So
So I don't know how to do that. I've never streamed directly to YouTube, so I don't really know if there's a way to do that.
do you want to? to stream on
But
your YouTube channel also, or on Twitch? Which one would you prefer?
I prefer YouTube
Yeah,
because Twitch is a dickhole.
right.
I think we've talked about this before. Like with Twitch, so YouTube, from what I understand, and I correct me if I'm wrong, that I could be wrong because I'm now dated on this info. But from what I understand, YouTube is your your algorithm and all of that, your pay, even if there is pay, is affected by the content and hours
Yes,
watched. Whereas Twitch has all of these rules where you have to meet
criterias and parameters, and
specific criteria before you can even be considered for pay.
yes, exactly.
And one of those criteria that really bothered me was it wasn't about how long you streamed, it was about how many days you streamed.
Right.
So I was able to stream when I was streaming like 3 times a week, and it wasn't enough. They want you to stream 4 times a week. And it didn't matter that I was streaming for 3 or 4 hours at a time.
Right.
It only mattered that it was so many days.
Exactly.
And it was like, bro, you guys are getting hundreds of hours of content out of me, and you are just fucking me.
Yeah.
So that's not cool. And I don't want to lean on Twitch very much anymore at
Oh
all
yeah, I
if
left
I
that a
can
long time
avoid it.
ago.
Yeah, it's bullshit. It's a bullshit system,
Yeah, I
and
would say YouTube is
they
much better algorithmically in terms of like setting up for us and getting it out there. The ease of using it is way better too, which was so
mm,
complicated. There were layers upon layers of things to figure out. I didn't like it.
yeah.
And the engagement on this was a lot more clean on that sense. And the general people and audience were way just respectful too. So I
Hmm.
liked this format. YouTube tends to grow pretty quickly. What I love about it is that sometimes I only end up posting like once in a couple months, and I want to post more. Things just kind of get in the way, and even if I do come back once in a while, it still has the same return, the same number of people, and people like
Yeah.
having it on. It's like, oh, we missed you, that kind of thing, and it was nice.
Mhm.
And YouTube didn't punish you for that
Yeah.
necessarily.
We're taking a break. Yeah.
Yeah, even if you're
That
posting a little
makes
bit at a time.
sense. So really the challenge here then is just finding a way technically to Y split the stream so that it can go to two locations at the same time.
Yeah, you'd have to
And I'm
research
not
that a little
sure if
bit.
that's
Yeah, yeah,
possible
I don't know if it's possible either
or
too. I don't know if
yeah.
anybody actually dual streams like that. But I wouldn't be surprised if there
You
was
know, and
some way.
honestly, I don't know if it even really matters that much. Like, because my YouTube, it's not dead, but like the reason I want people to get to it is because of all of that. I again hundreds of hours
Yeah,
of Twitch streaming that I did
yeah,
and painting and things like that. It's all there,
right.
and it just doesn't get seen. So it's like fuck.
Have you
I did all
imported
this
all that
work
stuff
for
over to
nothing.
YouTube at all, like completely, or is it still like trickling through?
I've imported most of it. I
You
have a
have.
bunch that's just like still waiting to be published because there just hasn't been much response to it. And like this is kind of tied to like the things that I make, you know, my stories and shit like that. It's kind of the same. It hits the same way
Yeah,
where like it's frustrating. I've worked really hard for this thing and just wasn't as much of a response as I thought there would be. And then I look at the quality of the other stuff that's out there
yeah,
and it's like, how is it possible that I'm doing this badly?
right.
But you know, you don't really have control
Yeah,
over
people
that
in the chat are
stuff.
saying that there are people on YouTube and Twitch that do multi streams. Um,
Hmm.
you've even so EC is saying you've even seen some YouTubers multi-stream to Twitter. I see. So multiple platforms. Within YouTube though, I mean there must
Hmm.
be a way to do it because if you're opening up OBS on your side, capturing your desktop, streaming through your channel on the same time I am, I can't see why that couldn't happen.
That's probably the solve.
Because
Of course, we'd be showing the same content. Do you think there would be issue with that?
well, I guess that's what I was questioning because you wanted to dual stream. So as we're live streaming right now, it'll also be shown on your channel as well too. I'm assuming is what you're asking.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that probably the best way would just to be to leave it here and then just copy it into a playlist because I have playlists of like you know interviews and stuff I've done before, and I just link it back to my page. That way, maybe that's just the way to do it.
Yeah, people are just saying
Yeah. Oh
YouTube
yeah.
OBS is it is the main thing. And we're using OBS
Yeah.
right now as well too. So we can try that next
Hmm.
time, maybe just to test it out, see if we want to live stream this on both channels, mine and yours. Or I would be
Hmm.
using my OBS key, and then you would use yours as well too. Um,
Hmm.
but Yeah, John Albert, hey, welcome, man. He's saying Aaron Blaze does multi-stream, but we're talking more about just using primarily just YouTube. So it'll be Izzy's YouTube channel and my
Yeah.
YouTube channel. So it'll be a case where
Yeah,
like
it would be multi-streaming to 2 YouTube locations at the same time. I haven't seen much of that. Like, mine is set up to stream now, although I haven't done it yet. I
right,
went through the process of setting it up. I just never tested it.
right,
Was streaming to YouTube and Twitch simultaneously. So, the way mine is set up right now, if I just press a button to turn on OBS, it'll automatically
right.
start streaming to YouTube and all of
Yeah,
that. So, I'm careful not to touch that thing.
yeah. You might have to test it
But
a
yeah,
little bit on
so I
your
could
end.
do that.
Yeah,
But 2 YouTube sites, I don't know. I don't know.
yeah. I mean, it wouldn't hurt because you have your own subscribers and I have my own, and I
Yeah,
could track your people on that side, and we can cross pollinate that. Um,
yeah.
but that's something we can maybe give a go next time. Where if you can readjust your OBS to just stream directly to YouTube and not Twitch,
Mhm.
you just share your screen.
I guess alternatively, one of the other things we could do, because like my hope is to be able to bring the viewers and like the community, although meager it is, that I've built on Discord, to be able to do the same thing that yours are doing, like lean in and listen to the stuff. Because I feel like the things that we're talking about would be just as pertinent to them because they're all in the same journey as all of us, right? So yeah, I just want a way for them to be able to access it live as well.
Mm,
But I guess the best way to do that would just be to follow you on your page then,
sure. You have
which
to
is
also
fine with me. I
understand
don't
that
really
a lot
care.
of times people are going to be watching
You can
stuff
just give
later
me
on.
like 10%, buddy. No big
Yeah,
deal. Huh?
yeah. Well, I mean, the live stuff, honestly, I don't see huge amounts of people coming in at times. I haven't gotten that sort of like, I guess, interaction. Most of the times it's the after effect of
Mhm.
people watching the recording. So, reposting it is one thing, but we'll figure that out next time. In any case, I don't know. We've gone about, what is it, already hour and a half. So I think that's a good amount of time. We'll probably keep these like hour and a half, 2 hours as we go
Sure.
along. But yeah,
Yeah.
for our first
I
sort of
mean, that
just
works for me.
okay, yeah. Just first hangout talk. Thanks, you guys,
Yeah.
for hanging out and joining in on us. This was us just having those kind of shoot the shit moments and just kind of figure out how life is and sharing our experiences and just having a moment to just talk to each other. So
Yeah.
hopefully for those of you that are hanging out and will join us next time as well too, we're going to try to maybe keep these on Mondays if we can, and we'll try to
Mhm.
do it either weekly to bi-weekly. But I do have a trip coming up to Paris, so that might put a little bit of a stumble into our meetups for the moment. But when I get back, we'll start it up again.
Let's start with weekly. Just of course, Paris not included.
Yeah,
But let's start with weekly and see like if there
yeah,
if we have enough to talk about weekly. I feel like we might.
I think so.
Um,
I
and then
figured what it'll,
if it feels too frequent, we can slow it down.
yeah,
But
we can
I
slow
think
it
it's
down a
better
little.
to start strong and see if we've got anything to
Right,
talk about.
right. I think in the future, one other thing we can maybe do is like bring up current topics of the day, like
Yeah.
what happened this month or what happened this week, kind of thing,
Mhm.
and then we can discuss that.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
But again, it doesn't have to be so
I would like
official.
that a
I
lot.
think just sitting and talking, and even if it ends up
Well,
being repeated a couple times, I'm okay with that, topic wise.
one of the things that we used to do that I know we don't do now is like, even back in Sherry's days would be shit talking. Like we used to watch tons of movies and
It's
anime
true.
and stuff like
We
that, and
should do that.
we'd have some strong opinions. And because we're pros now, you don't do that. That's
No,
not cool.
right.
But it might be interesting because like we're both kind of in like fuck offsville.
Oh, I have no problems
Just be like,
watching
okay,
like
I would be
trailers
down for that.
or talk about
Yeah,
films or games and breaking it down, I guess, in a way.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm
I'm
pretty
down.
sure.
I mean, especially games. I'm still like I avidly dump my hours in the games. So and movies,
I just started playing
books.
Indiana Jones, The Great Circle.
What do you think of that?
It's pretty
It,
damn good, actually. I like it quite a bit. I haven't finished it just yet. I'm playing on my PC, but I think it's pretty fun. It
yeah,
captures the vibe of indie really well, and I'm a huge fan of Raiders, so that's
yeah.
that game. Honestly, is probably one of the better ones of the year. Um, that one, and
Wow.
yeah, and of course we could talk about games forever, but we'll do that next time. Still,
Yeah.
Indiana.
Well, that's kind of half of the fun, but
Yeah, exactly.
it's on my list. I do want to play it. It's just I haven't gotten around to it. Like it's money. Yeah, it's the money thing. And I have all these games already that I
Yeah,
never finished.
right.
So I'm playing of all fucking things, Ghost of Tsushima.
Are you serious?
I never finished it. I'm dead
It's
serious.
such a
So I'm
good
like
game.
in the it's such a good game, and I loved it. I bought it when it first came out during COVID. I was like, I'm gonna play the shit out of this. And then other games came in. You know what it is? It's my damn first person shooter addiction.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
So like Battlefield came out and Call of Duty, and then I end up playing that. And so all of these really quality games get put to the side for
As
a
do
long
I.
time. But I'm devoting myself to Ghost of Tsushima right now because there's a sequel coming out this
There
year,
is.
I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, and I'm very excited for that because
Oh, they killed
Sucker
it.
Punch kicks ass. They're a great studio.
They've always made
They
solid games. Always.
always solid games. And Ghost of Tsushima is a work of art.
Mm.
Like everyone should own that. I think
Yeah.
I'm only halfway through and I love it.
Yeah. While I'm playing
Hmm?
indie, I actually started over on Witcher 3. I'm in the middle of that right now.
So good. I've seen you on that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been playing it.
Are you doing the Blood and Wine expansion too?
So it has all the DLC content attached to it. So I'm playing it from the beginning
Hmm.
because I played it from the first. I played the first time like 2 years ago, and I just didn't fully immerse myself into it. And I felt like I started off
Yeah.
real bad, just in terms of just play wise. But I'm having a much better experience right now. So I'm kind of back and forth on Witcher 3 and Indiana Jones. So I think I'll be done with Indie soon. I'm already at the last portions of it. But Witcher, I feel like I'm going to be on that for another like couple months.
I am definitely down to devote like talking games and movies and stuff too, especially the art side of things.
Yeah.
I think that's something that's not talked about a whole lot. I
Oh
follow
yeah.
a lot of the gamer YouTube channels,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Second Win and things like that,
Mm.
where they talk about. I don't like the ones where they talk about the politics of it as much,
Right.
mostly because it's all bullshit and they don't
Yeah.
understand what they're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there aren't a lot. There's a lot of sites devoted to design,
Sure.
like gameplay.
Gameplay, level
There's a lot
design.
of sites devoted to review,
Mm.
devoted to it. There aren't that many that really talk just art. And I actually had started a letter I was going to write to the Second Wind guys and say, hey, you guys really need a program
Yeah.
that's run by an art director or a concept artist that can talk about that side
Mm.
of game making, because you guys are totally missing this section. Like everybody has good opinions about it and they talk about it, but they don't have that in-depth knowledge of actually being there. And I think that would help. And I ended up not sending it. I started the comic instead. I was like, I'm gonna pitch doing a show with Second Wind and see if these guys will pick me up, or I'm gonna do a comic. And I chose the
Mm.
comic.
Well, even the
So this
reviewers,
might be the solution.
I read a lot of reviewers and
Yeah.
watch them on YouTube for games, and they never talk about the art. And if they do, it's so
They never talk about it.
public
Yeah.
kind of perspective, and they don't really know the ins and
Hmm.
outs of maybe even like being
Yeah.
able to discern the
Yeah.
art side of things. So I think that could be a component to things we can talk about into the future.
Oh, totally.
That'd be fun. We have to keep playing games
Gang,
though.
we gotta. I want you guys to remind me this for our next meeting or some meeting down the line because I have some shit to sling. Uh, I don't know if you played it at all. There was a beta test run for a game called Concord. Did you hear about this shit?
So I think you were the one that told me about it. I think
Yeah.
Concord.
Oh
I
God.
gotta look it up.
So there have been these videos. Just go on YouTube and watch these videos of people talking. So there was this whole like anti-woke,
Oh,
hard
so
right
I never played it, but I
response
know what you're
to
talking
it.
about. Yeah. Yeah.
That they flipped out because the character, it wasn't even really the characters, but they flipped out saying that the characters were too woke
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the designs were shitty.
Yeah.
But the thing that really set them off was that in the very beginning, because I tracked this stuff, the thing that set them off was all of the characters had their pronouns
Mhm.
listed.
Right.
That was it. There's no agenda, there's no message. It's just they had their pronouns, which okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just common thing now. It's
Yeah.
not even really a big issue, but that was their issue with it. And then they just let it catapult over everything else to just
Mhm.
shit on the game.
Right.
I played the beta, and I was like, you know, it's solid. It feels really solid and polished, but it just doesn't. It's not working for me.
Yeah.
Anyway, the reason I wanted to start shooting the shit on this is I want you to go online onto YouTube and watch some of the videos of
I've
these
watched some of them.
concept
Yeah.
artists.
Oh
Have you watched some of these
no, no,
of
no.
these concept artists that come back and redesign these characters to make them not woke and better? Oh my fucking god,
So I've
bro!
seen the videos thumbnails, but I never touched them because it just I couldn't do it. I couldn't, but I guess I'll try. Um,
This is the reason it got me so erged was this shit was starting to show up on LinkedIn.
yeah.
These videos of people like proudly like redesigning these characters, like the dickishness of it was like mind blowing to me. Just mind blowing. And it would be one thing if they like sat down and just churned out, the most badass
Yeah, sure.
designs that I've ever seen. They went in and did like color swaps and
Right.
shit and like tried to call it character design. And just watch a couple of them.
Okay.
We'll talk about this later.
Okay.
We're gonna let my blood pressure come back down. We're gonna end the show.
Yeah. Send me a
But
text on that.
remind me,
Just
we'll
remind
talk
me.
about this down the line.
Okay. Yeah, I know the game. I
All
haven't
right.
watched the video yet, but I'll check it out. So yeah, and we'll
I think
also
artistically it was weak, but not terrible. It had so much potential.
yeah.
Did you watch the Sorry, I keep going
It's
on
okay. It's
because you
okay.
let me talk. Don't
It's
let me
fine.
talk. There's that new Amazon Prime show that's a lot like I think it's by the same people that did Love, Death, and Robots. Second,
Oh, next secret
next
level.
next level, secret level. That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah. So there's a Discord short for the not Discord Concord short for what the game was intending,
Right. Right. Right.
and it's really good. That
Mm.
short is excellent, and like it's poppy. It's a little bit. It's certainly wanking kind of hard in the Guardians of the Galaxy
Was that the one they were
direction.
trying to rescue the captain in the beginning?
Yes.
Okay, I just watched that last night. Actually,
Yeah.
literally,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was okay. It
The
wasn't
art's
bad.
good. The
Yeah.
story's fun. Like it has potential.
Yeah.
It's not top notch. It's not mind blowing, but it's solid. It has heart. Give it a goddamn chance.
Yeah. There was definitely much work out there,
I don't know.
but
Did you hate it?
no, I didn't even realize that was the game because to be honest with you, I was watching some
Yeah.
of those shorts. I didn't know what game context they were talking about.
Same.
Like Outer
Same. I didn't
Worlds.
know most of them.
I don't know what. I don't ever played it. Outer Worlds.
Yeah. Oh, I did play that on a demo, and that was a
I
pretty good short
remember
too.
seeing the covers. That's
I
all I
thought it
remember
was.
the cover. Yeah.
It was the Bethesda Elder Scrolls.
Yeah. Okay.
It was the same guys that did Skyrim. So
Hmm.
this was the first thing I think that came out after Skyrim, right? Am I misremember? I might be misremembering this.
Can't remember either.
Ooh, I don't know. I might be having a Mandela effect right now, but I don't know. Anyway, dude, sorry.
It's okay.
This is good. It means that we have shit to talk about,
Yeah,
right?
no, I think that the even like the stuff coming out like secret level shows and episodes, I think it'd be good one to get into to just to like discuss, break down. Even somebody's mentioning things
Mhm,
like retro games, stuff we grew up on. I think it'd be fun as well too. So no, there's definitely
mhm.
a wealth of things that we could be doing in terms of like stuff we could watch and then even like have our own sort of like takes on it. So that Concord one
Yeah,
might
that
be a
sounds
good one to
fun.
kind of go into because that happened sometime mid this year, summer of this year, something like that, when they were
That
posting
just
all those
happened.
videos.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because they just released and it bombed worse than almost anything I think I've ever seen. Like there's a lot of factors. I can't blame it all on just like this anti-woke thing. Of course not. Like there are problems with the game. There's
yeah,
problems with the market that they were trying to get
right,
into.
right.
But if you look at it just in a vacuum, it was a solid looking game that played well. Like you think about games that are launching with the bugs that they do now and the shit that people put up with,
Right.
it's crazy that was the response. And I feel like a lot of it was fueled by some weird politics. You know what I
That
mean?
brings up, and that's something I'll bring up next time as well too. This the topic of I hear a lot of comments from general public being not being able to discern or differentiate between good CGI and just bad design. Because people will watch
Hmm.
movies like Marvel and they'll watch a show and they say that the CGI was terrible. And I thought the CGI doesn't look really that bad to me. Yeah, the visual effects of quality can be up and down a little bit, but it doesn't seem terrible to me. But are they actually commenting on that or just a bad design? I don't know if people really know.
That's that is a good topic and also very spicy, my
It
friend.
is, yeah. I don't mind
Because you're
talking
going
about
to be making some statements, which I'm fine with. I mean, hell,
it.
this is how it goes, right?
Right, right.
Oh my god.
Anyways, For those of you that are
Sweet.
listening in, you guys are in here for the first time hanging out with us. We will try to do this probably in about next, when I get back from Paris, we'll start it up again. I'll contact you. We'll sit
Yeah,
down and do another hour and a half, 2 hours,
yeah.
just,
We,
live streaming, and we'll just chat and talk, man. All right,
sounds good.
cool.
Kick me the link to this video, and then I'm
Yeah,
gonna post it on my Discord and just have them start following you. I think that's gonna be the easiest thing.
that's fine. Okay,
Um,
whatever.
yeah, and if you guys have ideas for like how to improve the format, definitely let us know.
Definitely. And give a comment, subscribe both on my channel and Izzy's channel. It'd be really helpful to get us out there, and we'll keep it going for sure. So thanks you guys for hanging out, and I'll chat with you in a minute. I'll send you a text. So in touch.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, dude.
Stand by.